Okay, this video is going to go through how I envision using the math map during my home days with my student. I am a Challenge A director this upcoming year, and my oldest daughter is in my Challenge A class. So we'll be using the math map on our community day on Mondays. And then this is an example of what I plan to do, at least with her, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from home. And so just wanted to show you at least one way to do it, and you can decide what you think about it. And wanted to show that there's 3 different parts. The first part, I'm gonna give a little perspective on the math map. You can fast forward that if you don't want to hear my thoughts on that. If you want to go straight into how to use this during the week. And then I'll go through an actual full week of what it would look like. And then the last thing is I kind of wanted to talk about the one-room schoolhouse concept, because I also have fractions. And so I want to go through kind of how you use this if you have multiple kids. And if you want to see how I've organized all my stuff and laid this out, you can see that on another video that I have on organizing the math map. Okay, so the first thing is a little bit of perspective. So if you've been in classical conversations for a while, your child was in essentials for the last 3 years, potentially, or at least some portion of that. Do you remember when you first saw this booklet, how intimidating it was? And there's all these charts, and there's all this stuff in here, and diagramming sentences, which I didn't do growing up in school. Maybe you did, but I definitely didn't. Even knowing all the parts of speech, didn't know them. Knew a noun, I could tell you what a verb was, probably could tell you what an adjective was, certainly didn't know what an interjection was, didn't know when to use it, didn't know how to diagram it. There was so much I didn't know, and I was so scared when I first saw this binder, but I thought, you know what? There's other moms here, CC moms, that are telling me it's going to be okay. It's all going to make sense. There's time to learn it. You're going to get it. Just take it one step at a time. And didn't it work? I mean, it's amazing. I went from not even being able to tell you the parts of speech. And then this last year, our essentials tutor had an emergency. And at the very last minute, I had no problem jumping in and teaching the class. I mean, that is the beauty of the classical conversation method. And so you can trust that the math map is the same thing. I understand it looks intimidating. People are looking at this, and your kids are looking at this saying, I don't know what the words are on this page. And it's okay. You don't have to know it all on day one. And you don't have to get it all the first cycle around. And you're building the grammar of mathematics to help you become a better math scholar. And so it's going to be okay. That's my first little perspective thing. Okay, and so with that, let's jump into it. Go ahead and get your complex week 2 booklet. And if you have kept your stuff all together, it looks like this. So it has a 2 at the top. You have a nice little Pissarro artwork piece here on the front. And you may have yours still bound. And this is where I'm saying I have another video on how I kind of took these apart and organized this all for us, at least how we're going to use it. So this is what was most of the binder, at least the work problems are in here. And then we have our charts. My copies I put in Page Protector. I might not do that for my student so that she can make notes and draw on hers, but mine are in Page Protector, so I'm pulling those out. There's 2 pages of charts, and you can see it's for week 2 because it says right under here, C2, so chart 2, and then they're double-sided. So there's a chart 1, chart 2, chart 3, and chart 4. Okay, so every week is going to have 2 pages, which corresponds to 4 charts. And they tie together with the weeks, and we'll go through that in a second. And then you have the solution pages. And so the idea, I think for most people, or kind of the general idea, is that your student's probably working through 4 pages a day. And so they've put the solutions on here because you can zoom into this and read what it says. And if you want this in bigger font, you can pull that up on the companion as well. But I think for most of our students, they're going to be able to read the answers on this as they need them. So knowing that we have these items, let's see what it looks like. Okay, so here is the start of the booklet. So I will tell you as a director that this front page, the artwork, the quote, and the reflection are exordium. So we have already talked about this in Community Day. So you can choose to talk about this with your student. If you want to add to the conversation, you want to give your family perspective on the conversation, you want to see what your child learned or retained from talking about this with their community, I mean, that's a great idea, but you also don't have to worry about this if you don't want to, because your director's already done it. And if you're unsure how to get started with talking about this, that's what this back page essay is about. So this is pretty much kind of one person's viewpoint on everything on the front. And but it's a really good reflection and just some good information. And so actually, as a director, I've been going through this to help make my lesson plan to help guide the conversation when we do the exordium over here. Okay, so that is the first page. First page done. The students also went through and made sure they know where we are for the week. So this is complex, week 2, number notation. We are still on 0 dimension. Okay, so they kind of pinpoint that at their community day. The next page, I'm gonna pull these over so you can just lays out a little bit better, is the invention page. So this is information, things to know. We go through this on Community Day also. And so what I do as a director is I say, what's familiar? What is unfamiliar? And we talk about different things, and maybe I'll pinpoint something that seems important, you know, understanding a point in the 0 dimension versus once you get into 1 dimension and you have a line, and 2 dimension and you have 2 planes. And so trying to understand those things. Euler diagram, explaining what these look like versus Venn diagrams. And then just going over a little bit of terms and notation. So we have talked about this in Community Day also. This is a frame page. The frame pages have an I with a superscript. So there's frame page 2, 3, 4, and I think 5. So this page, invention, has been covered in Community Day. Ooh. Okay, the next page is right next to it. This is I3, the next frame page, and it has memoria and arrangement. So the concept with the memoria and arrangement is that this is probably more, maybe explanatory and telling you about something. Maybe this is more something that you kind of want to really remember. So it's not necessarily memorize, like have your kid copy this chart like they would have done in Essentials. That is not what it means, but it means try to put the concepts and try to put this into memory, understand how this fits together. Okay, so we touched on this a little bit in Community Day as well. So now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of the actual day at home. So when you turn the page, the first page you're on says 1, and there are 16 pages. So the concept is, with the 4 days at home, your student would go through probably page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so that would be, let's say our Community Day is Monday. So on Tuesday, my daughter is going through page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then on Wednesday, she's doing pages 5, 6, 7, 8. See the pattern? So you're doing 4 a day. You could modify those 4 a day and just focus, well, we'll get to that. Okay, let me explain how 1 page works first, or the 1 day works first. Okay, so at the top of the first page, and I keep bringing this closer because I don't know how well you can see it, but you should also just have your copy out so you can see it the best. There is a little checkbox at the start of every 4-page part where it says flashcards. And that's because they want your kids doing flashcards. So do you remember in Saxon how you would do those drill sheets and they'd get like 5 minutes to do as many multiplication problems as they can? That is the same thing that you can think about for flashcards. And the concept with flashcards is that you're practicing your quick math. And so this is, I'm pulling this from the fractions. I did not buy the multiplication at first, but actually I've bought them since then and decided I did want the actual CC flashcards because I kind of like how they're formatted. And so I have them coming in the mail, but I don't have them yet. So I'm just going to show you fractions and notations. So on the fractions, this is what the flashcards look like. And you're kind of covering the front because the lower part corresponds to the image on the back. So here, let me grab this first flashcard. So you're looking at this, and you can see it's a quarter, or 0.25 or 25%, all those things apply. So when you look on the back and you look down here, oh, and I forgot the ratio, 1 to 4, okay? So there you go. That's everything you would need to know about that image. And so they can test themselves if you want to look at that. I envision actually kind of making this more of a game because I have 2 students, and I can let them call out something that they see about this, and they get to keep the card if they've remembered it, and we kind of try to see how many cards they can get by the end of it. So that's one way to do flashcards. I also want to point out that, like, within the fractions, at first I thought, oh, this is all easy. My kid already knows this. But then you get to some of these flashcards where you're like, what? Okay, I don't even know this stuff. And so you don't have to worry about these on day 1, but just know that things will get more complex, okay? So what I've done is pulled out stuff that I think she really needs to focus on now, and then we'll add the other stuff as she gets to that level. And I'm doing the same with notations. So notations are amazing. And now you're not gonna find this, you can find maybe some fraction flashcards and multiplication flashcards somewhere else, but you're only gonna find these from CC. So this is a collection of mathematical notation, so symbols and abbreviations. And some of the stuff is not too difficult. Plus, positive, you know, what else do they say? Addition, okay? Some of these things are not too bad, and I've pulled out everything that I thought was part of the first week for Ex Nihilo. But then as the weeks go on, you're adding other components to it that they may not know yet, but they will eventually learn. And so what I'm doing is adding in flashcards as a concept is introduced within the lessons. Okay, so that is what flashcards is about. And so that is just building your rapid math calculations, okay? Next part is, okay, you can read what it says. It says complete the sentences, okay? 0 dimension is represented by a point that is that in which has no, and we already talked about this last week in Ex Nihilo, length, width, and height, but if they didn't know that, there's a couple things they could do. So if they don't quite know how to fill this out, here, let's actually start with the Euler diagram. Okay, so they're seeing this and they go, I don't know I can tell there's blanks here and I'm supposed to fill in the domains here, but I don't even know what this means. Then they go to their chart. Okay, so the charts have all the information you would need to do your homework. Okay, so you're looking back to a source, you're referencing back to a source to solve a solution, right? This is something that we love. This is a skill we love that they're building. And so here you go, Euler diagram of number sets. And it's telling me I'm dealing with complex numbers, which have imaginary and reals. And so, oh, look over here, imaginary, and over here, that must be reals. This must say rationals. I can tell that because I'm seeing it in my chart. And so I'm going back and forth. And if I want examples of different types of numbers, I can look down here and see different types of numbers that would fill into these different boxes. Okay, so not too scary. I mean, this looks scary when you first looked at it, but not when you really see, oh, okay, no, I have a reference that tells me about that. Then let's go on to the next thing. And for the most part, a lot of the stuff on the first page that they work for the day is pretty highly correlated to the first page of the charts. It's not always exactly perfect, but it's pretty close. Okay, this little note over here is just saying discuss. Okay, so just compare this, think about this. You're not even calculating anything right here. This one says to study the pattern and memorize it. So they're talking about imaginary numbers. They're explaining how you calculate for imaginary numbers, but really what you need to know is I is square root -1. Second power of I is -1. Third power I is -I, and then fourth power of I is 1. And this pattern will repeat over and over and over. So every fourth power I know is still going to calculate to 1. So the 8th power of I is also 1. And so they'll start to build that pattern and memorize that, okay? So they just have to memorize. Match this. You can kind of look and match it. Write the irrational approximation. So I'm looking over here and I don't really see what those are, but let me just check the other part of my chart. Oh, and I look back here on my chart and look at this says common irrational number approximations. Wow. And you know what? We talked about irrational numbers in class, but here they go. If they don't remember them, it's going to tell them what it is, what the symbol is, and then the expression. So you go over here for pi and you put in the 3.14 and phi and you write that in. So you're adding all that, you're just putting that information right on here from the chart. Over here it says copy. You're literally just recopying it, okay? Nothing complicated about that. Maybe this is a little bit more complex because you're trying to figure out how there can be zeros, and sometimes you see a zero and sometimes you don't, but it's still the same calculation in that case because the zero doesn't change anything. So sometimes there's hidden zeros, and that's just a concept they want them to start learning. But let's say I couldn't figure out what I'm supposed to do right here. Okay, so if your student is still confused and they're thinking, I don't quite understand what it's asking me to do here or what it's expecting, that's when you pull out the solution pages, okay? And it's fine to work backwards using the solutions and then using the solutions to fill this information out, okay? So I can look at my solutions page and I can see what the answer is supposed to look like. See how the answers are in the kind of that purple red? And then the student can go back and fill this out. And it's fine that they're using the solutions. I expect that my kids probably will need a lot from the solutions on the first day. And then by Tuesday, they're repeating the information with different calculations. Maybe they'll understand it that time and they won't need the solutions. Or maybe they do need it for a second day, but maybe by the third time they're doing it on Thursday, now they can totally do it on their own. So it's fine to let the kids have the solutions. I'm not planning to give my kids the solutions and just say, copy the whole thing. I think they need to try to work through this as much as they can. But if they're getting stuck, let them work backwards. They're still learning the process. They're still learning what they're supposed to be doing. So it's totally fine to do that, okay? A little bit different than the way I've ever approached math before. So that was the first page. Second page, you can see now we're kind of doing number representations and a little bit of stuff about numbers, but not really. This is more like domain notation and everything. So let's see what else we have here. Wow. Look at number representations, and here are all your numbers. So you have your numerals, cardinal words, ordinal symbols, Roman numerals, and tally marks. And sometimes, you know, tally marks and Roman numerals don't apply, right? You don't have zero. The Romans didn't believe in zero. So some of this stuff is marked out that you're not going to fill it out. But down here, they can complete the chart, and they may just know this in their head, but if not, they can come over to the chart and they can see the information to help them complete the chart. Signs and symbols. So we're starting to introduce symbols. And then that's a great time to say, find those symbols in your notation pack, okay? Get those out for your notations. And then tomorrow, when you're going through your notation flashcards and you're looking through things, we're going to have some of these items on here too. The radical symbol, vector U. And what's really nice is you're saying the phrase here and they're telling you how are you pronouncing these things, because part of math is being able to speak the language, right? It's almost like a foreign language. And we haven't done enough with our math programs to help the kids get the grammar of mathematics. But that's going to change with the math map. And then they're filling out what the actual values are on these things. Okay, so that's not too bad there either. Third page. Okay, more stuff, writing in decimals, fractional parts, place values, things like that. And guess what? Third page, third chart. Wow, they look very similar. Okay, so this has a bunch of the information that you need for this. Oh, and a little thing to know about charts. So the charts stay the same for all the levels. So this is the same chart that they use in complex, which is the 7th grade Challenge A level. This is the same chart they use in transcendentals, which are the seniors, Challenge 4 kids. So the concept is this is the math mastery of the concept. So we are not expecting our complex kids to know everything on here yet. The idea is that they can go to this resource and pull the information that they do need to know, and this work page is pared down to a level that they can do and use and comprehend compared to this. Okay, so that's kind of the difference between their work pages and the charts. But you can see here, I have this information on here, and I still don't quite understand what these bases table things are up here. I don't remember this from math very long ago, and I want to be able to help my kid understand this. So I'm going to look to the companion for this, and I will show you that in just a second. Let me just do the last page real quick. So this is page 4. This would be our last page for the day. And if I look on the back on chart 4, a lot of this information, okay, subsets and all these types of things, this stuff up here, you can see information about this. And so from this, I can probably read the sentences and look, actually, I don't even have to do any matching stuff. Read the sentences, copy it, copy the notation and write it in here. I'm not even being asked to like explain and do a performance on this or anything. So just read the sentences, copy it, okay? Now here's a little bit where you are kind of completing and understanding how the sets work together. Venn diagrams, and then notation for vectors. So a little bit of vector stuff down here, okay? And there's a little bit of notes on vectors right here. And you can always use your solution page if you need for that. Okay, so that is how it would look. And then the whole process repeats the next day. So the next day you have page 5. See how there's a flashcard check up here? 5. And oh, wow. Okay, look at 5. Look at how similar that page looks to page 1. They're not quite the same page, but they're very close. You notice the headings, the power of nothing, 0 dimension. We have our Euler diagram over here. We have, you're talking, okay, so maybe a little bit different, but you generally are having some of the same information. So just general ideas about complex numbers, both on these pages. So if you had a kid that was kind of struggling, this is a lot of information, they'll do better by having a lot of repetition. On your first day post-community, so for us that would be Tuesday, if I felt like my daughter needed more repetition on each individual day, then I would have her do page 1, 5, 9, and then I think that works out to 13. And all those pages will pretty much look like this. And so all she's having to really focus on is kind of that first chart page and filling out this information. And there's a lot of repeat of that same information. And then what you would do is on your second day, they would do page 2, page 6, so on. So it's every 4th page. And so those pages are all going to line up and look pretty similar. So it's a way to do more of a, I call it the mastery method versus the spiral method. I think that's how Dr. Gilpin referred to it also on one of the book clubs. And so that is another way to do it. If you don't want to do 4 in a day, or if you do want to do 4 in a day, but you want to do just a lot of repetition, just do the same type of page over and over. The other thing to note is that on this the last 2-page spread, there's a conversation starter thing up here that talks about how to discuss math with your kids. And there is a lot more information that she's put on the companion on these concepts and the historical backing behind some of the different math concepts. It is really fascinating to learn more about this. The next thing that they have on here are instructions for the game. So they'll have instructions for the game, and then the game is located on the back. And I envision doing the game on our 3rd day at home. So for us, that's on Thursdays. We do the game as just kind of a way to start our math. I might even, we'll see. I might skip flashcards and let her just do the game. We'll see, as just kind of something for fun. And then resources, you know, things like that, if you need that. Now, I plan on the last day of the week. I don't know if I'll have her work through the last 4 work programs. pages, or if I'll just have her do the careful calculations. So the careful calculations is a way to have more detailed, kind of your traditional math drill work. And so one of my concerns with the math map, the first time I saw the first booklet, now Ex Nihilo is different because it's more of like an instruction guide on how you're using the program. That's not what your typical week looks like. But I was a little terrified because it looked like almost all reading and no math. And I said, there's no way this is going to be enough math for my kids. They're going to college. One wants to go to med school. So they need more. But I have since learned there's plenty of math, that the Ex Nihilo week is not a good week to judge things by. There's plenty of math in your week. And then if you want to assess it and test your kids on the math, you can give them this page and have them fill this out and see how well they understood the domains and being able to translate, you know, a number into a decimal and a fraction and a ratio and a percent and things like that. And so let them work through this as a type of kind of test or assessment or just some extra math drill practice. So that's what this careful calculations page is for. And the answers for this are in the companion as well. So let's jump over to the companion because I keep referencing the companion, and we will learn a little bit more about how that works. And remember, we're going to look up complete the n-ary bases table. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. So let's learn a little bit more about this, and I'll show you some of the other pieces in the companion that you care about. Okay, so I have moved over to my computer so that I can show you some stuff on the math map. And to find it, you head over here to Learning Center, and then you can either go to week 7 and come down here and you will find the math map companion. And if you don't have a week 7 in your login, be sure you have paid your full tuition to your director, and then they have to go in and indicate that you have paid tuition and you're set to go. The other thing you can do, you can type companion in the search bar up here, or the fastest thing you can do, which is what I usually do, is, over here on all types, you click interactive tutorial because it is the only thing that is an interactive tutorial, and it finds it, and only it, and it makes it real easy. So here we go. Math Map Companion, I'm going to launch it in full screen. And it's kind of like a book. You click the little top tab, and here we go, we're in the math map. So we are talking about week 2. So I'm gonna come over here to complex number notation, week 2, and click that button. And it is going to open up the booklet we were just looking at. So from here, I can click in the little upper corner, and it will go from page to page. See how it kind of does that? And there's other stuff here, and these are links. The other thing I can do is that I can go straight to a given page. So we were looking at page 3 in the book. So I'm just going to jump right over to page 3. Here is page 3. Here is that thing on the place value. I'm going to highlight over it and click it, and lo and behold, here is a much more detailed information on, okay, chart 2-3 had my information. I think I could have figured that part out. But here is a lot more details about how this stuff works together, and it explains more of it. And if that still wasn't enough, look at this. There's a video down here.
As we look at lesson 2, page 3.
And these videos are recorded by Dr. Gilpin, who wrote this along with Lee. And so she's gone through and she gives further explanation. And these are little snippets, they're under 5 minutes, where she talks in more detail about any of these given concepts and explains things. And she uses the vocab. And so sometimes when I don't know if I'm pronouncing something correctly, I can come here and hear her speak about it and then realize the correct way to say Euler instead of Euler's diagrams, okay? So that is one of the great things about having this. And they don't have everything detailed out. Okay, well, so they have that detailed out. Let's see if I click over here. Oh, this has a whole video. Not everything has a whole video. Wow, I mean, this page really has a lot covered. Not every page has something written and a video for it, but maybe they just don't yet, and she's working on adding that and putting more information in here.
So like if I go to another page, let's go to page 4. See, oh no, yeah, that pulls up something. Okay, they all are. Sometimes they don't highlight. Okay, so this one, when I hover over it, it doesn't show me that it has anything over here. But any of these other items will give more detail. And sometimes it's just written detail like this. And then other times it has a whole video. And because this is a digital resource, because they have it online, they can keep adding. If we tell them, oh man, a lot of people are struggling with this concept, they can add more detail. They can do a different video. I mean, this is a live resource where they can keep adjusting and making this fit our needs better and better. This is also the reason this is never going to be a printed resource. It can't. It is massive. It has a ton of information, it has a ton of videos. You couldn't even stick this in a thumb drive and make it be something useful, okay? It has to be a digital resource that you can find only by logging in. And the other note is you do not have to have this resource in order to complete the math map, right? You have all the information that you need in the charts. So like here's the careful calculations. Remember how I told you, if you come here to the companion and you click on the careful calculations, it'll give you the solutions for that. So just wanted to point that out as well. But this is such an extensive resource, and it's a great resource that they have, but it's not the kind of thing that's going to be printed, okay? So you're just gonna have to come here and use it. You could just use the charts. It's just, this is so much extra information. And we've had to pay for Nicole the Math Lady for the last few years because my kids struggled with understanding their Saxon lessons, but we didn't have an individual help on like every single problem necessarily, and explaining a concept and giving us all the extra grammar and providing extra videos. I mean, this is extensive, more extensive than any math program that we have used before in the past.
Okay, so that was a great preview of the companion and what it looks like and kind of how you use it. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the one-room schoolhouse concept, okay? So one of the frustrations with, well, probably the biggest frustration for me for homeschooling the last number of years is that I have 2 kids that are only 1 grade apart, which is really nice, and it makes it really easy for the most part because we can do everything together except for math. Math has always been something where one has one math, one has another math. They're doing different problems. It's just, it takes so much time. We can't do it together at the same time. It messes up everybody. So that has been a problem, that you can't really work together. And most of our other subjects, we can usually find a way as a family to kind of integrate everybody's stuff together so that, like on history, we're talking about things together, and then people just have a different level of work that's expected of them. Well, finally, math can work that way as well. And let me show you what I mean. So this is the fractions. This is available in the companion. So where I went down and clicked on complex and then went to the 2, if I went to under fractions and clicked on the 2, there would be a little link for the PDF, and it will have the PDF for week 2. I had these printed up. I had them bound. I have a whole video on how that all, how I did all that and organized this. But so here is my younger child who's still in Foundations and Essentials. This is her math that she's going to work through. So let me show you her week 2. Let me open this up. You can see that the cover is the same, okay? So week 2 on fractions and week 2 for complex and week 2 on any of them are all the same, other than this band, which shows you which level you're in, which domain, or not, domain. And so this domain includes fractions. And Challenge A kids are in complex, so they're using real and imaginary numbers. Okay, but she won't have any imaginary numbers in her packet. She is only dealing at most with fractions. So if I go to the first work page for her, and I'm going back to the first work page, so not the frame pages, but the actual first page that they're going to complete when they work from home. Okay, so here it's, look at this, it's the same. You have a flashcards checkbox right here. The power of nothing is right here. Hers, she's still indicating what 0 dimension is. 0 is a natural, and there's your N. Over here, my older daughter has 0 as a natural, but then she has something about the complex numbers because she's starting to learn about complex numbers. The Euler diagram, for my younger daughter, she only has up through rationals and integers and naturals that she would fill in. And again, she doesn't know what those are. She can look back on the chart. She doesn't have to worry about all this stuff over here. She's just going to look over here, and it's color coded so she can match it up, and it has the names in there, and she can just write them in here. And then my older daughter, of course, had the more detailed one with the complex and imaginaries. And then next year, is it next year or 2 years? It's next year. We start to add the algebraic domains in there. And so those will start adding onto the bigger part. Okay, if you look down, look, the 0 dimension and 1 dimension of the idea of a number line, they both have that problem. But then where my one daughter has complex numbers coming into it, my other daughter has some fraction work right here. Okay, and then more complex numbers, and then kind of matching up the fraction, then names, the different names that she would have and things she needs to know about fractions. So that's how it works. And as you keep going through all of her pages, here's her page 2, here's my complex daughter's page 2. Number representations. She has a little bit simplified version of what this is, but they both can use that chart to get the information, signs and symbols. And so hers are more maybe fraction related, although look, so she still has some words. She's learning vectors and stuff, even if she doesn't fully understand what vectors are. And they're going through and completing this, and they're working on very similar math. It makes it a lot easier for me as teacher to sit with them and help explain things and know where they're at and know what they're talking about. And we can all be having the same conversation. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So that's part of the way this is community focused, right? It's community focused, and that everyone in the community is working on the same stuff. And at our home community, our family community, we're working on the same stuff, and it helps us with that. So I hope that this has been a great way to see how you can use the Math Map at home. You can do this. Your student can do this. This is going to be great. This is going to give them a grammar and an understanding of math that they haven't had before, and maybe you haven't even had. I certainly don't feel like I had, even with a graduate degree, this in calculus and all that. I don't feel like I understood this as well as I'm starting to now, that I'm piecing it all together and having all these great resources to put it together. So I hope this was helpful for you. Thanks for watching.